Howdy, and welcome to episode 3 of Kathairos and Kimray's Shop Talk series, where we dive into the details of how to operate pneumatics in a clean, efficient, economic, and an environmentally friendly way. I'm joined today by Jeff Port, my good buddy Jeff Port, Kimray's product manager. And today's episode, we're going to talk about keeping pneumatics healthy. What does the proper maintenance look like? What are the things you can do to ensure that those pneumatics are operating flawlessly and keeping your production facilities, your midstream facilities, your oil and gas flowing the way you intend it to? So without further ado, let's just jump into it. Jeff, how are you doing today?
Doing really good, man. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's thrilled to have you here in the U.S. headquarters of Kathairos in downtown Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
Always great to catch up. But listen, y'all are the experts in how to keep pneumatics up and running and keeping the molecules flowing to the sales line or wherever they may be going. From your point of view, what does proper pneumatic maintenance look like? What would you tell your customers that purchase your equipment about maintaining their pneumatics?
Yeah, it's a really great question. I think that the best kind of maintenance is preventative maintenance, right? You don't really want to be having these kinds of conversations when production has gone down. So whether it's a pneumatic device or really any other type of control device, our recommendation is always to have some type of preventative maintenance schedule in place, just so that you can actively be monitoring the condition of your equipment.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And we're sitting here, it's mid-November. We're about to head into winter for North American southern latitudes.
Right.
Our northern latitudes, our friends up in Canada, are already dealing with the onset of winter, which can be a challenging time for pneumatic operated control process valves.
Yeah.
So talk to us about what causes pneumatics to fail, and what are some of the remedies or things you can do as weather changes, as environmental conditions changes, as production characteristics change.
Yeah.
What are some things you can do to keep your pneumatics up and running?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, one of the most common issues we typically see with pneumatic devices specifically, and this honestly isn't always noticed by producers even, but it's when a device starts to continuously vent. So they're all designed with the three-way pilot plug to be an intermittent venting device, meaning that it only emits to the atmosphere whenever it's sending a signal or sending action to be done by the valve. But especially in wintertime, when we start to see higher levels of moisture or condensate present in the system, that can highly affect that pilot plug assembly's ability to seal properly. And so you start to see more issues with things potentially even freezing up, especially in conjunction with the colder temperatures, or just impeding with that seal. So then it starts to continuously vent to atmosphere, which obviously affects not only environmental things, but even the valve's ability to function properly. Outside of that, we also see, just because it's a very sensitive assembly or internal components,
Right.
Even if your gas isn't super clean, sometimes small particulates can get in there and start to, again, impede on that seal, creating issues where you're starting to continuously vent. This is one of those things where people know that there's supposed to be some level of venting happening, and they don't always know how much,
Right.
which means they may not catch it all the time. But it is something that is probably, I would say, the most widespread issue we see when it comes to pneumatic devices.
Right. Right. Does changing production profiles, say at an upstream production site, does that affect the operation of the pneumatics or change the parameters? I'm just thinking about production being correlated to the amount of actuation, right?
Yeah, it definitely could. So obviously pressure and flow are two things that matter tremendously whenever you're sizing a valve to begin with. And so knowing those things going in and or how they may change over time is really important, because it will affect how the valve is able to function,
Right.
how much it's actuating, etc. And so since it is an intermittent venting device, you may not know exactly how many times per minute it's going to cycle per se. But all of those characteristics definitely flow into what you should expect to see and how frequently that's going to happen.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Kimray's name is synonymous with reliability and process controls and how you support your customers and from, not just the initial transaction and purchase of the equipment, but
Absolutely.
really keeping it up and running over the long time. I mean, you've told me before that you have models of Kimway actuators that have been in the field, 20, 30, 40, 50
We do.
plus years,
Yep.
right? Is still out there. What are some best practices from your perspective on how Kimray works with customers to keep the longevity of those assets and keep them up and running for those time periods?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I think that one of the main ways that we want to provide value is by giving you the most information up front so that you're making an informed decision on the type of product you're selecting based on the application it's going to be used in. To make sure that you're going to see that really long life out of it. If the valve isn't spec'd in correctly, obviously you're going to run into challenges. So we always want to make sure we're doing the most upfront. But then additionally, we want to make sure that we're still walking with you every step of the way beyond that and providing high level of service after the sale. And so, there are a lot of ways we can do that. I think at a general level, we always want to make sure that there are good preventative things in place. We try to make valve maintenance really, really easy if we can through repair kits and other things like that. There aren't necessarily set recommendations when it comes to when you should repair a particular piece of equipment, just because applications vary so much from one producer to the next, and even just from one site to the next within a given company. And so making sure that you're setting that based on the conditions you're seeing. But I think as a good rule of thumb, even if your conditions are most ideal, we probably would say you should have a PM cycle no longer than once a year.
Okay.
We do know of cases where people have gone well beyond that, but I think that you should always be checking, even if it's just something, making sure that things are clean internally. You're not seeing buildup of anything inside. So things like that. And then obviously trying to, in any ways you can, make the conditions well suited for the life of the product.
Right.
So obviously when we're talking about winter, we're talking about moisture content and all the havoc that can wreak on a particular product or, really your control devices in general. What can you do to prevent that? Are there good ways that you can clean up, dry the gas, or potentially go with a different option for supply gas in general? Something like nitrogen is obviously an incredible option because of how clean and because of how dry it is.
Right. And you brought it up, so I'm going to go there. But
let's go there.
Hopefully our audience is learning, but may already know, Kathairos is the premier supplier of a liquid nitrogen-based approach to supply clean, dry, inert nitrogen as a replacement for wellhead motive gas, right? In these pneumatics. And maybe talk to us about how Kimray sees the advantages of, switching off of an instrument air package or a wellhead gas driven pneumatic system to utilize something like the Kathairos liquid nitrogen-based motor gas.
Absolutely. I think from our perspective, it's the easy button. The moment you choose that, you are really eliminating a lot of other factors that come into play when it comes to pneumatic device health, right? That's kind of what we're focusing on here today. And it really is, in our opinion, a premier solution for that specifically. We're seeing tons of people move that direction in terms of having an outside source of supply to their pneumatic devices. And obviously, instrument air compressors is very common. But most people start to get headaches this time of year specifically because of a lot of the things like moisture buildup and the maintenance required for those systems, essentially. And so one of the reasons we love the Kathairos solution is because of how easy it really is. So not only are you protecting your devices
Yep.
and making sure that they're going to run optimally, but you're also essentially relinquishing all of the need to maintain and monitor and have to keep up with all of the additional equipment that is normally required if you're going with something like compressed air, for
Yeah.
example.
You're absolutely right. One of the things that we see in working with our customers at Kathairos is just that, with 2,700 sites now operating with our solution, and over 30 million, approaching 35 million operating hours. Our fleet-wide availability is 99.99%
It's incredible.
documented, which is for
Yeah.
upstream oil field reliability kind of unheard of, right?
Yes.
And so originally, as Kathairos was entering the market, we were talking about emissions reduction, because that was the pressing thing. Regulatory compliance. There was these new things coming both in Canada and the U.S. But what we're seeing now, even though that the regulatory concern may be softening a bit, given some changes in the regulatory policy frameworks here in the U.S. and as well in Canada, is that our customers are adopting because fundamentally they know that the Kathairos solution is more reliably going to send molecules to the cells line more often, right? And regardless of sort of what we think about emissions reduction, the ability to demonstrably demonstrate that shows real value to our customers, revenue line.
Yeah,
right.
I completely agree with that. And I think that in addition to it, you also gain advantage through a lot of the empirical data that you guys can provide, which I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the really cool things about the Kathairos solution is because we're monitoring the fill state of the tank, right? We know exactly how much nitrogen is being consumed. And using gas equivalency ratios and ideal gas law, we can then understand how much is being vented in terms of methane, so how much was eliminated. So you were talking about not knowing, how much venting's going on, or if the valve's operating accurately, the pneumatic devices. Well, Kathairos, just by happenstance, we're sort of able to monitor that and understand what was almost a big unknown for the industry. I love it when people argue about equipment level estimates and vent rates for pneumatics, and we're like, well, we got the data.
Yes.
It's
incredible.
So it's great, and that data is finding not only operational uses internally for doing things like cost forecasting at the asset level, etc., but for the emission nerds out there, which I'm a proud member, you can also start to map things into OGMP 2.0 reporting or voluntary reporting into corporate sustainability reports and those types of things. Interestingly, in Alberta, where there's an emissions offset system, we're actually turning those reductions from our measured empirical data into value for our customers, offsetting or in some cases eliminating the cost of our solution on their site, right? Now that's dependent on what carbon offset value is at the time, which fluctuates in dynamic, but it opens up new avenues for our customers that didn't exist before, simply by creating a data stream on what's happening with their pneumatics. And as we know, process controls control process, right? And if you want to make sure that you know what's going on with your facility and that those molecules are flowing to the cells line reliably, having that data can be a real value and a real benefit. And I think that's the exciting thing for Kathairos right now is, we're thrilled with our hardware solution, and our customers have really adopted it, and we're really starting to grow and cover almost all the basins in North America. But with the launch of our Atlas digital data platform that's pulling all this data in and making it available 24/7 to our customers, we're finding, really fascinating and unique ways that our customers are extracting that data, taking that data, and begin to using it for their own internal purposes, be it from a corporate sustainability standpoint or from an operational optimization and performance standpoint. right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that's really beautiful about that is previously there was this kind of understanding that to have good data acquisition, you probably needed to go with an automated solution. So how do I electrify my sites? Which, can be the right choice for some people, but it obviously requires not only a lot of upfront cost, but also a level of understanding and acumen within the company of like, how am I going to keep up with this long term?
Right.
So to be able to still offer pneumatic devices that are tried and true and people are familiar with those and still gain that level of insight is absolutely incredible.
Right, right. So let's talk about the Kimray by Kathairos tie-up and how you can take an already reliable piece of hardware and couple it with a reliable source of outside supply data, illuminated,
Yeah.
reliable source of outside supply, and how Kimray and Kathairos can really work together,
Yeah.
right, to offer something to our customers, the oil field operator community that hasn't existed before. This ability to really drive optimum and best
hmm
performance of their sites.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great question. I think our goal is to make things as easy for the customer as possible and being able to have clear recommendation to really great solutions, right?
Hmm.
That's kind of what sparked this to begin with. We saw the need in the market. We knew that people were going this direction. We're selling products that are made for use in these sort of environments. And so having a trusted partner who has a really stellar solution that can provide customers not only what they need, but added value beyond that, I
Hmm.
think is incredible. And so that alone, I think, is valuable to our customers. But additionally, just like we talked about before, this is a beginning to end or cradle to grave type of partnership in terms of being able to walk with our customers from initial conversation of like, what do you really need? What problem are you trying to solve? To, hey, we've implemented this solution and we're here regularly. We can help you with buttoning up those issues that you're finding through the data that you're seeing. Like, hey, I think I have a leak. We'll call Kimray and we can come out there and take a look. We have a field service team that can optimize or kind of get those things where they should be for you. Your team is out there regularly
That's
doing
right.
tank refills, those kinds of things. So I think the ability for us to have our customers' best interest in mind from multiple angles is a huge value to anybody who's wanting to go this direction.
That's right. Really being able to approach a customer as a single unified sort of solution holistically
Yep.
to their pneumatic process controls and operations at their sites. I mean, you touched on it, but I think one of the great things is, if we notice anomalies in the data when
hmm
data changes from what was predicted.
hmm
So, a potential disrupt in your pneumatic process controls registers as a rate of change of consumption of nitrogen.
Yep.
And we see that. We see that in the
hmm
data. And I mean, daily we are sending notifications, just heads ups
Yeah.
to our customers saying, hey, this site, its consumption profile of nitrogen has changed. And
Mm.
that may be for a very good reason, an operational
hmm
reason that they're already aware of, or it could be a pneumatic
Yep.
disrupt, right?
Absolutely.
And we get that. And a lot of times it's leading to faster, quicker actions by our
Yeah.
customers, which ultimately, in the long run, keeps their facilities running
Yes.
at optimum performance,
Yep.
but also reduces the cost of our solution. And I think that
100%.
sometimes customers find it weird that we're trying to get them to use less nitrogen, right? But that's just part of,
Yeah.
being a good supplier, a good solution
Absolutely.
provider.
Yeah.
And when we notice those types of, anomalies in consumption, it allows us to then say, hey, we know a great organization that's going to know those pneumatics better than anybody else. Do you want us to, hit the easy button, so to
Yes.
speak,
Yeah.
and get our partners in Kimray to come out there and do a
Yeah.
check? Equally, when our guys are out on site, we size our solution for a 30-day working supply of nitrogen as best we can. So it's our expectation that there's going to be a trained, certified Kathairos technician at site once a month. and they
Yeah.
carry a bottle of Windex or what have you, soapy water, and they do spot checks on the pneumatics just to make sure that everything's tied up and everything's good.
Yeah.
But that's an added value of service I
Yep.
think that you get between the Kathairos Kimray partnership
100%.
that just doesn't exist elsewhere in the marketplace.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the baseline understanding that at the end of the day, when our customers are successful, so are we. And so this partnership is really just a reflection of how much we care about our customers' success and ways that we're trying to make that happen.
All right. All right. Well, I'm going to throw in a curveball here because I think it's always fun to know horror stories, right?
Okay.
And so from your perspective, we're talking about the health of pneumatics and how they drive performance. And I think it's easy for our audience to understand that. But give me a good Kimray story. You don't have to name names. We want to keep it anonymous.
Okay.
But do you have a fun Kimray story of somebody who may have not paid as much attention as they should have in maintaining their Kimray products?
For sure. I mean, gosh, it's from my perspective, some of the worst I've seen is typically when it turns into a fire, which is never good.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it does happen every now and then. So I think in my tenure at Kimray, I've seen it about a handful of times. And it's just, a terrible situation when essentially things are not used the way they're supposed to, or they're neglected, and there are repercussions for that. And so when you're just spewing natural gas into the air, there are bound to be things that happen, and we hate to see it. It's never a good thing, but that's probably the worst in my mind, is when it gets to that level.
I mean, that's pretty bad.
It is pretty bad.
You definitely don't want any type of uncontrolled combustion on your oil and gas
100%.
facility. Now, saying that, I have to say that nitrogen's inert.
Yep.
And so you're never going to have to worry about a combustion event with your process controls or pneumatics, because nitrogen is inert.
Yep.
Right?
You're right.
So another added safety benefit of going with the Kathairos solution
100%.
is, removing any type of fuel source from the operation of your pneumatic process controls.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Well, Jeff, it's always fantastic when we have a chance to catch up and share dialogue, hopefully dialogue that's valuable to our customers or potential customers out there in the market. But what would you leave our customers with, our audience with, when they're thinking about, how do I keep this piece of critical equipment that controls my operations and delivers molecules to the sales meter, right?
Yeah.
What would you tell them? Hey, these are our tips, and how they could potentially begin to think about integrating a solution like Kathairos into either their greenfield sites, new sites, or converting brownfield sites that are already running off of instrument air or wellhead gas.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really great question. And we've honestly covered so much that I think relates directly to that. And my invitation would be for customers to join in the dialogue. And so I would say nothing's off limits, whether it's new, old, existing, etc. There's always something that we can do to try and help people improve their process, improve their ability to be successful again. So I would say ask, come to us, let's talk it through. We may work in sales environments, but we're not like any old car salesman. We're really trying to find what's best for you, your operation. And so I think just presenting us with the problem to be solved and seeing what we can do to help.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to add to that, what I would say is, listen, if you have questions, you can call Kimray. If you have questions, you can call Kathairos.
100%.
Or if you feel comfortable, you can call us both at the same time.
Yeah.
We get along. And I think that from that perspective, we're really able to step in as trusted advisors on, what it takes end to end to create a high performing, optimized pneumatic process control system for you, that not only is going to deliver the operational performance, the reliability performance, and optimize total cost of ownership, but also ensures that you're future-proofing against any regulatory changes, any policy changes.
Yep.
And as you said, we love talking to our customers,
Yeah,
right? So come challenge
absolutely.
us. Give us a hard idea, right? Because I bet we can step up and meet the moment when our customers do that.
I agree.
Well, Jeff, it's always a pleasure gaining your insight and the insight of the Kimray organization as we address our customers. For our audience, thanks for joining this third episode of Shop Talk. We hope you found it interesting. And if you have ideas for new Shop Talk episodes or themes, please put them in the comments of the video. Let us know. We want to make sure that this is useful for you, and you're getting insights that really improve your operation, reduce your headaches, and deliver value for your organizations. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Kimray. And we look forward to joining you on another episode of Shop Talk soon. Have a great day.